So if you do want to buy a car and you're currently investigating whether you should buy brand new or you should buy used, certainly look at both, see what works for you, what is fitting for you. For example, are you looking to keep it for a long time? Do you want that new leather smell, for example? If you want all of those things and you don't want to forego those, then certainly buy brand new. But if you are a bit more lenient around those things, you still want a fresh car, you still want a demo car, but you want a car that's already gone through its first sort of depreciation rate and phase, then certainly buy demo or buy secondhand. For example, after about a year and a half, you should get a good rate at that. But the next thing I actually really just want to talk about again is when buying cars and investment cars. So, for example, there are a number of cars out there that you can buy. There are so many brands of cars that you can buy, whether you like German cars or Japanese cars or like American cars. There are a whole host of cars. I've seen that typically like South Africans really do love German cars, which is cool. I mean, there's so many benefits. I'm one of the biggest lovers of German cars as well. So there are a whole host of cars, and there are a number of cars within those ranges that depreciate lesser than other cars. And if you do a simple exercise, like for example, if you look at a 2012 or rather a 2015 R8 versus a 2015 McLaren, you will certainly see like there's really a big difference in how they both depreciate. They're both supercars, for example. One may be made at mass, the other one is a bit more rare, for example. So you will find that some cars generally depreciate less. You'll find that some cars appreciate more, and you'll also find that some cars hold their value very, very well. Typically in the hot hatch market, there are a few cars that hold value very well. Like I've seen that Audi RS3s hold their value really, really well. You're still picking up one fresh one right now, close to about $1 million, or about like 750, 800 or 850. You're still picking it up for roughly that amount, where initially that's how much they were getting sold at, for example, and you could get one with about like 30,000 Ks at about that price. So I think generally they hold price very well throughout sort of times and seasons and stuff like that. So if you are looking to get a car that doesn't depreciate as fast, get a car that holds its value really well. Kind of compare and see like a 2015 of this model and a 2015 of that model, where they're sitting, how are they holding their value from the initial price, etc. So you can begin to see those kinds of things. But the cars that I am really looking at is I'm not looking at cars that hold value very well. That's great. I'm kind of looking at a level above that. I'm looking at an investment car. I'm looking at a car that I can buy, and then over time it'll appreciate. Over time it'll become more rare. Over time it'll become more expensive. So essentially in my thinking, what I'm saying is if I am buying a car for 2 million Rand, for example, if I'm buying a car for 2 million Rand and I know that this car appreciates over time, it's essentially when I begin to sell the car, and it will depreciate, but the good thing is it won't depreciate by much. When I then sell the car, for example, I would have kept it for say 3 years. If I do keep a car for 3 years. If I keep it for about 3 years and I then sell it, and let's hypothetically say the car could be worth about 1.8 million after 3 years. I've driven the car. I've probably driven the shit out of that car and I've loved it. And it could be worth about 1.8 million Rand when I sell it. Now, the initial investment could have been like an extra 500,000 on top of that. But when I'm actually selling the car, you actually then begin to realize that the car actually depreciated a lot less. And due to it depreciating a lot less is that the kind of interest was kind of paying itself off. So what that essentially kind of works out is if I've got X amount of an interest rate, or rather a finance amount that I need to then pay back to the bank, for example, and my car is holding its value very well, I'm paying off every month. I'm paying this off for a few years. I'm paying this off. And my car's value is really not moving. And these essentially, you see kind of like a tilt within like a graph, for example, or rather within these values. I then have an appreciating asset, and I have a car, for example, that is literally going to withhold its value, and I'm essentially going to be getting my money back. So that becomes an investment car because it's appreciating in value and it's affording me more equity. So for example, I can take that 1.8 million and go buy an R8, or go buy like a Mercedes GTR or whatever. So I can essentially still sort of trade and get another supercar within that value because I have an appreciating asset. So it essentially works the same way in property as well. So really buy something with equity, for example, or buy something that's an appreciating asset. So it literally, if that's my interest and that's the value of the car, and I'm paying this off over time and it's decreasing in value, yet the value of the property or the resource itself is appreciating, and essentially it's appreciating just by this value going down. So that's kind of like what I'm looking to buy and what I'm looking to buy into. And there's a certain number of cars that kind of do that. I've noticed that like Porsche RSs do that. I've noticed that Ferraris do that. I've noticed that the Turbo S, which is a car I've loved for the longest time, like you could still fetch like a 2015 for about 2 bar. Like their whole value, like so well over time. I mean, I can drive the car, for example, I could buy it at maybe say like 2.5 million. I can drive the car for like 5 years, and when I sell it, it could still be worth 2 bar. So essentially, I've only been paying 500k for 5 years, which is crazy. So I am looking to buy cars that appreciate over time. That's why I really want to get into this business, and I really now want to start building my collection of appreciating sort of cars and appreciating assets. And in terms of appreciating assets and appreciating your car, another thing that I want to talk about, and this really hit me hard. It really hit me hard when I sold my last car. And I really need to set the record straight. Like, I do. I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if it's your thing. Like, I really do need to set the record straight. Mods do not give your car extra value. I will repeat that. Mods do not give your car extra value. For example, and I learned this like in the worst way. I had bought literally like a bone stock BMW M4 about 3 years ago, and what happened was I wanted to like kit it out. Like I wanted to like add stuff onto it. I needed like carbon fiber parts. Like for example, like I wanted to do like the outside. Like I wanted to like, you know, like do rims. I literally wanted to kit this car out because a stock M4, like I will tell you, like looks boring. It absolutely looks boring. And I had like an Alpine white one. So you can imagine having an Alpine white and it's just white and it's really just boring. It's like boring. So I really wanted to kit it out and have like all the spoilers and everything on it and all the carbon fiber and stuff. And then you went into the engine, you went like stage 1, you went like stage 2, and then you were going like stage 3, and then you realize there's a few more things you need to do. And every single time that you are buying these things, and best believe when you are owning a car like that, the spoiler's like a 15 grand. The lip is like another 15 grand. Like the side skirts are another 17 grand. Like the mirrors are like another like 8 grand, for example. All of these things seem to add up. And although they're carbon fiber and they look absolutely sick and they're aftermarket parts, like great, amazing, you don't get all of that stuff back. And what I had done is I had done all the carbon fiber bits, like I had eyelets on it, like I did like decals on it, I had painted the side skirts, and then I got too excited and it was great. I had the diffusers on it, I did like a full custom exhaust on it, I did like spark plugs, like inside performance plugs, like I did intakes, like it was crazy. It was literally crazy. That car was nuts. Like that car was nuts. Watch that video about my BMW M4. That car was absolute nuts. But at the end of this period, I had spent about 250 grand, about 250 grand over the period that I had owned it. And I wanted to do everything quickly because I wanted to be running the streets. I wanted to be roaming in the streets with a car that looks perfect, with a car that's like done. So what happened was, I then sort of created this car and I kind of built it up perfectly the way that I had wanted it. And it was incredible. It was like amazing. Like I loved it. One of the best cars that I put together. One of the best cars I put together yet, because I'm still about to put some others together. But essentially, you don't get that money back when you then trade that car, for example, because again, I'm not buying to keep these cars, is when you then trade that car, that 250,000 Rand that I had then put into this car, I did not get back. So one thing that people don't tell you is you don't get those modifications back. One of the things that people do is before they sell the car, they kind of remove everything. I had so many things invested in that car that I couldn't just remove them. The very value of the car and my ability to sell it was based on those things that I kind of added on there, because I thought, if I'm a car enthusiast and I'm looking online and I want a car that's kind of spec'd already, this is what I would go for. So essentially that's what I did. I just sold it as it is. I sold it with the intercoolers, the intakes. I kind of sold it because those were like really, really dope parts that I went to the end of the world to kind of source and kind of put together and put into this car. So I literally sold it as it is, and I got zero. I got nothing of what I had invested in that back. All I got was, for essentially, it's a BMW M4 and it's got these extras that came from the factory. That is all. That is all they bought and that is all they took, which really hacked me because I did not get that money back. In fact, what I think happens is, as soon as you start modifying your car, it drops the value of your car even more. If a dealer is looking at your car and they can see that you've got some aftermarket parts in your car, they already devalue your car, so you lose a lot more money. So the truth is, I potentially lost more than 250,000 Rand. With me modifying, I essentially could have lost about 400,000 Rand. Like, I definitely lost a whole lot of money within that deal because I wanted to mod and I wanted to have this like really sick car, from the engine to like the cosmetic stuff, and I did a lot to it, which brought me a lot of pleasure. But what I do want to say to you guys is, if you're buying a car and you're going to modify it and you have the budget to do it, cool, go for it. But do remember that if you're going to modify it, you aren't going to get that money back. So some people do add the mods again and they kind of do take them out and then they get the value that they get. And what they do is they end up sitting with parts. Like, to be honest, I'm still sitting with carbon fiber parts from another car that I had sold, and I haven't had the time, or rather the opportunity, to even sell those carbon fiber parts. Like, I don't see myself opening like garage in my boots to be like, oh, hey, I've got this like diffuser, hey, your car needs it, buy it from me. I'm not that type dude. Like, I honestly don't have the time to do that. So essentially what happens is, I then sit and have a whole lot of junk in my house when I can just get rid of it and it gives me no money back. So the other question is, if you are then getting sort of original OEM from the actual dealership. So it really differs, because often you don't get their money back as well. They're like, okay, cool, you've got a carbon fiber thing there, you've got a carbon fiber thing there. You often don't get that money back. But what they do is, when they then sell that car, they then add those as extras, and they don't mention, which is yeah. So if you are getting mods and you really want to get mods, please make sure you get from the dealership that you have bought it at. I know a lot of dealerships are really strict and stringent around things like this, so try get parts from them. But the crazy thing is, you will pay a fraction of the cost if you buy it sort of from an authorized dealer, of course, but like a third-party dealer, for example, or rather not from that dealership. There are a number of garages, a number of stores that I've bought at, which are absolutely amazing. But I kind of feel like the dealership system isn't really at a level right now when it can authorize those parts and things like that. So when you do get from a dealership, cool, great, amazing. But again, try and not modify it because it does drop the value of your car. You'll have a super fast car, for example, or you'll have a really great looking car, which will be incredible. But please do make sure that when it's time to now sort of trade up or to change or to sell, and the buyer or the dealership doesn't actually want those parts. So either remove them or just kind of like settle your losses, man, because you are going to lose that money. It brought you joy when it happened. Cool, great, amazing. So it's another thing that, again, just reminds me of how much like mods don't get you your money back. Mods are actually a bad investment, like, to be honest. And again, a lot of people are probably going to come at me with this. Mods are really a bad investment because from an investment perspective, you are adding value into a depreciating resource, which is going to depreciate, and you're not really going to get that money back. So had I taken that 250 grand and put it into, for example, like a business venture, or took it and kind of like bought equipment and resources and things that I could use that have a bit more utility that I can kind of use over a long period in time, I think it could have benefited me a lot more. But again, you do these things and you kind of learn and you become more aware of it. So am I going to modify my next car? I did learn my lesson. I probably would modify, but knowing what I know right now, and hopefully in what I'm teaching you guys, you get to learn more about that as well. And if you are modifying your car, you can do it a lot smarter, because when you modify, I'll say it again, you do not get that money back. It's very, very difficult. In most cases, literally, I will tell you, 95% of the time, you do not get that money back. So we need to do this a lot smarter as car fanatics and car buyers. And we really need to be aware of this stuff.